I want you to know you got this.
Yeah.
And you have everything you need in order to march forward with excellence and brilliance. So you make your personal growth and development a top priority,
Mm-hmm.
because the people who make personal growth and development a top priority fare far better than everybody else.
Right.
And it's a game changer when it comes to this space of confidence.
Welcome back, mompreneurs, to another episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur podcast. I'm your host, Angela Michuli. Thank you for joining me on this episode, where I have a conversation with Dorothy Enriquez, the CEO of the Ellevate Collective, and she's also the author of Be Accountable and Be Fabulous. So in this podcast episode, Dorothy and I talk about so many things that are going to help you grow your business, build confidence, start to realize the value and worth that you have. So some of those things that we talk about are the real jobs of leaders, and it's not just managing people. Her goal of representing more women in the C-suite, she talks about how women ascend, maintain, and wield power and also share it, and how that's different than men do it. We talk about what tools need to be in your leadership toolbox, how to build and maintain your confidence, the importance of the soft skills that we bring to business as women, and how it fills the skills gap in business to really distinguish ourselves and separate ourselves as leaders. How you can lead from any position by influencing yourself first, and the power of quiet leadership. So those are just some of the things that we're going to talk about in this podcast episode. But before I share it with you, I want to invite you to leave a review for the podcast if you are enjoying this episode, or if you've listened to past episodes and you're now subscribing. Please leave a review, because it helps other mompreneurs find the podcast, and it helps me know that I'm creating content that is resonating and helping you. Then please feel free to share a podcast episode with somebody you know will find it helpful and inspiring. And then also be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. We come out with 2 episodes a week now, one on Monday, one on Friday. And that Friday one may change, but you'll get a notification every time a new episode is released. And without further ado, here's my conversation with the amazing Dorothy Enriquez. I'm excited to talk to Dorothy Enriquez today, the CEO of Ellevate Collective. I know that you're just going to have so much to share today, and I love your mission. I love your story. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast was created to have conversations like this that are, with women doing important things. And I love what you're doing. So a little bit of background about you. You're a single mom, killing it, doing all the things.
Right.
Yeah, and you're from Belize.
I am.
Yeah, and so tell us about Ellevate Collective and about your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, indeed, I am a single mama making it happen. I've built an award-winning 6-figure business, the Ellevate Collective, and I did it with an infant in tow. And so Ellevate is really here serve corporations, nonprofits, and small businesses, cultivating today's team member into tomorrow's leader so that everyone in that leadership role can answer the call on remarkable leaders, which is to
Mm-hmm.
produce another who can produce another leader who can produce another leader. And I think so often the mistakes that leaders make is they think that their job is to solely manage, and their job is to lead, manage, and produce more leaders. And so here at Ellevate, one of the things that we seek to do is build the representation of women in the C-suite. We make up over 50% of the population, yet we're about 25% in the C-suite, which is just
Yeah.
not that great. Plus, we believe that nothing, and the research backs us up on this, nothing bad happens when women are in positions of power. It actually makes dollars and cents to have us there. And so we really are striving to build women up to ascend into those powerful positions. And so our programs take that into consideration. Most leadership programs, of course, take into account how adults learn, but we also want to take into account how women ascend into powerful positions, how they maintain power, wield power, and share power, because we do it differently than men do.
All of that. All of that.
Like, yes, put a big circle around
All
that.
of that.
Yes,
I mean, like, let me put a heart around that. I mean,
yes.
oh my gosh. It's just so beautiful to hear. It's like medicine, and it's just something that I care so much about because I'm a natural born leader. So I would just, and I never realized it, and I had ideas about leadership that were false. But I would really love to hear about what inspired you to start Ellevate Collective.
Yeah. So this firm was formerly known as the communication strategist, and that spurred from attending a leadership retreat that would basically funnel into this 9-month cohort style experience for
Mm-hmm.
African American leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And through that retreat that I attended, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I was the caterpillar, in that chrysalis stage. I was like, you
Uh-huh.
know what? I am about to elevate. Literally, I'm about to transform.
I love that.
I am about to imagine everything that it means to be Dorothy Enriquez. And
Mm-hmm.
so I attend that retreat. It's I want to say it was a two and a half day experience. And I paddle into my boss's office and I let her know I'm gonna quit this job. And she was like, ugh, I
What?
know. Right. Like, who does that? But I felt so rah-rah about myself and
Yeah.
who I was going to become. I just needed to let her know. And she's the one who sent me to the program. So she was not surprised about my behavior. Typical girl. Like, mind the business that pays you, girl. But I just went into my boss's office to put her on notice. I am leaving. I am going to blow this popsicle stand. And so she was like, ugh. Yes, I already know. Please go do your work, please. So I was like, well, I'm hot to it. I don't know how to figure it out. But I think that once you make your choices, I feel like God, that's what I believe, but God, the universe, the flying spaghetti monster, all of these things will co-conspire with you to say, do you really want it? And let's pressure test this. So I go to the October, create the firm in December, create the website, start putting the pieces together, and then formally launch in January of 2017. And
Mm-hmm.
my first client was JCI. Just like I put it together, it's that whole like if you put it together, they will come. However, comma, what I'm going to say, lady leaders, they will come if they know it exists, child. If they don't know if it exists, they cannot come. So that's my caveat there. So that first
Yeah.
opportunity, JCI, and I was the panel moderator for diversity, equity, inclusion. Um, I was the moderator for that during,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in January, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then it just kind of started trickling together from there. And so I would begin putting the pieces and components, finessing, refinessing, branding, rebranding, 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 to the point where I was like, you know what? I think I just need to rebrand altogether. And so in 2021, I rebranded completely
Mm-hmm.
and paid invested. Because I think sometimes the things that we do as women, we feel like because we're, superhero adjacent, we feel like we just can do everything ourselves. And I was totally in that space. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it makes sense to hire an expert instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to become Jill of all trades. And I've
Right.
not had to rebrand since 2021. Praise the Lord. I've not had to rebrand since because I invested in
Right.
experts who do branding. So that's kind of how it got started and how I got here. And so now I am in my fifth year of being full time in this space, but it
Mm-hmm.
originally got created in December 2016.
That's just wonderful. And you've had some real power hitters be as clients. I mean, it is so
Oh,
congratulations to
listen,
you. I mean, it's like
that
you're
docket is sexy, honey. It's
yeah.
sexy.
Yeah, you're making it happen. You're the real deal. And I think it's just awesome. So let's talk about your mission to increase female representation in the C-suite by 2%.
Yeah.
So in the next 5 years. So I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I know that there are women listening, people listening who don't know what the C-suite is. It gets that
It
basic. They don't even know where they need to be looking. So
is.
they don't even know what their goals should be. So can you just say like what the C-suite is and like how you are working towards that goal?
Absolutely. That's such a good question. So, lady leaders and other people,
Yeah.
peopling and leading. So the C would be the highest level that you could sit at in an organization. So typically, corporations have C suites. Usually, like an academe, there's not necessarily a C suite, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
On the nonprofit side, you've got the executive director, but they don't necessarily refer to themselves as the C suite. They might call themselves the senior leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
They may even call themselves the executive leadership team. But once you get into the corporate setting, they are referred to as the C suite because these are all individuals who have some sort of C in their title. So, what does that mean? That means you could be the chief human resource officer. So,
Mm-hmm.
you sit over all of human resources. You could be the CMO, chief marketing officer. You sit over all things marketing and all those VPs, senior VPs, junior VPs, directors, senior directors, and everybody below. That upline or downline reports to you as the C. So you could have a
Mm-hmm.
CMO, a CHRO, you could have a CSO, which would be your chief strategy officer. And so each segment of the business is going to have this chief overseeing it, and all of the chiefs report to the CEO. That's the chief executive officer. And so what we would like to see is that with all of these chiefs, however many you have, that at least half of them are women. Now, 2% may not seem like a lot, but if you look at the statistics, it's been lingering in that 20% space for
Mm-hmm.
more than a decade.
Right.
It really hasn't moved. And so to be able to move that needle by 2% would be epic. And so one of the things that we do a couple things as we continue to strive towards that goal. Number one, we infuse how women ascend and consider that in how we partner with clients. So what does that look like? That could look like partnering with a client and saying, let's take a look at your job descriptions. Because one thing that we know is that a man could have 4 out of the 10 required traits and be like, oh my God, I can kill it. Yeah, I'm super cool. I'm going to smash this role. A woman could have 9 out of the 10 traits and be like, you know what? Find somebody else to do it. Find somebody else to do it. I'm not qualified. I just can't. And so
Mm-hmm.
being able to put language into those job descriptions because we already know how women think. And that's taking into account how women ascend into power. That
Mm-hmm.
also looks at how do people navigate into promotions?
Mm-hmm.
Some organizations have set up to even get a promotion, you got to interview again, but you got to volunteer to interview, while other organizations have it set up in a merit format, which will pull women through than having that interview format. So being able to partner with these organizations to kind of highlight some of these elements and components that they might not be thinking of, because they are possibly peering through that lens of leadership, but not considering, well, how do women ascend into these positions? Because what happens is we go into the organization and we literally see a drop off. So what that looks like is there's lots of women in individual contributor roles, meaning that no one reports to you. And there's lots of women in what might look like a professional one role, right? Or an M1 role, a managerial one type of role. Lots of women there. Even if, depending on how tiered the organization is, you could have like a team lead type manager, supervisor, a regular manager, and a senior manager. These are all management roles, and we see plenty of women. But then once we start ascending into that director and VP, you see a complete drop off. It's like a cliff. If you looked at the data, it would look like a cliff and somebody jumped off, right? And so what we're trying to see and what we're trying to address is this cliff. It's a glass cliff where we are literally falling out of place. And it's harder to ascend into those director, senior director, VP, senior VP roles to even get into the C-suite, right? And so with our programming, with our cohort style experiences and activations, coaching, group coaching, keynotes, and any other content that we might produce, it's keeping all of that in mind, right? And really focusing, having a little bit more of a focus on the women to say, well, we know how we are. We know how we can get. Let's not say we did. I know that you're planning to not negotiate, but just know, sis, by you not negotiating, you will leave $1 million on the table over the course of your career. Just know it. Know it, download it, and then stop not negotiating. These jobs are created for you to negotiate. That's how the job is structured, to have wiggle room, knowing that you're supposed to negotiate. But if we don't have these conversations and if we don't create these brave spaces, sometimes we just don't know.
That's right. So, I mean, that's amazing for women who, want to move up. But a lot of my listeners are at the point where those are the same things that are keeping them back from moving up and negotiating and taking those leadership roles, are the same things that are holding them back from starting their own businesses. So there is work to be done, right?
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that we can start working on? What are the changes that we need to start making to empower ourselves to start seeing that upward mobility?
Ooh, that's good. One of the that there's a few things that I think that we could just add into our leadership toolbox. So one of the things is taking radical accountability for where you are and where, like, you are happening to your life. Your life is not happening to you. So kind of shifting that frame, because sometimes I feel like, depending on how life is lifing, we start to feel like everything's happening to us. And I think that as women and as lady leaders, that causes us to shut down, and it causes us to feel like we are not in control and we don't have any power, and we just got to let it wash over us like a tsunami. And I'm saying, yes, life is going to life, but how do you want to show up in the midst of the lifing, right? There are things that you can do in that space of accountability to take control over what you can control. I'm not talking about controlling the wind and all of that. We don't have any control over that part. But for the pieces that we can control, how can we take accountability in that space? Then, once we've kind of gone on that journey, how can we really cultivate our confidence? And as we think about, where do we want to sit in this confidence space? are we depending on other people to cultivate the confidence for us? Like if I don't hear good job, I don't feel good. If somebody's not noticing that I'm winning out here,
Yeah.
I'm not happy. If somebody's not recognizing me for all the shine and magic that I bring, then I feel like, what's the point? And so, how can you get to this
Mhm.
point where it is more internal than external? And so, in doing that, you'll want to really take a look at where's my self-esteem at, right? Because
Yep.
it's called self-esteem because it's for myself, it's coming from myself.
Yep.
So I really can't depend so much on other people for that piece. But where is it at? How do
Hmm.
I feel about me? What I'm doing or not doing, how I'm showing up or not showing up, and where's my optimism at? Am I at like a glass half full or am I at a glass half empty? Am I in this space at this particular juncture and season where I feel like just nothing's working for me? Where am I with my optimism? Where am I with my compassion? Am I mean to me? Would I let them talk the way I talk? Do I give myself wiggle room to heal? Do I give myself wiggle room to try new things and bump my head? Because you know what? Let me tell y'all something about what
Oh.
I do. And this is not just for you, it's for me too. But I could be doing something. I don't know what I was doing like 2 weeks ago, and I was salty that it was not perfect. Salty. Friends like, girl, haven't you never done this before? Well, no, I haven't done it before. What's your point? Why do you expect to be perfect in something you've never even done? What? Because, right? And so,
Hmm.
not having that compassion and expecting complete excellence in a space where you're learning, we're putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves. And we already
Yeah.
are carrying so much, we're already doing so much. So, that same compassion, if your friend came to you with that and y'all having a bonding session, offer that to you. And then that last piece, because we're talking about confidence, y'all. So the efficacy piece, that's that difference, a deep inner belief that you know that you know that you know that you got the juice, you are the magic. So even if I copied everything that you did, you are the magic. I cannot duplicate you. I can only imitate you, but you're going pro. Nobody's better at you, at being you than you. And so if you have this self efficacy sense of knowing that even without all the pieces, even if things don't go perfectly, even if I'm not completely sure, I know that I can win. I trust this process and I trust who I am and who I'm becoming in this process. I think if we do those things and put those elements and components together, that's what's going to give us what we need to go out and apply, to go out and negotiate, and then to also go out and start the business. Girl, start the business. You were looking for a sign, here it is. Go ahead and start, right?
A thousand
And that
percent.
idea of the world doesn't need another business. Child, go to the aisle or the bread aisle. I rest my.
Right. I know all of that. I mean, from learning to trust yourself to being good to yourself
Right.
to, you
Yeah.
know, really not needing that external validation. I mean, the lack of confidence I see in very high performing women, it's like an epidemic. And
Oh, it is. It is.
I personally didn't realize that I had fallen into that trap and was looking
Same.
externally for validation on my worth and what I brought to the
Oh
table.
my God. Too.
So, I mean, so what are some things that you suggest that we can do that we can start to build our confidence?
This is good.
Yeah.
Okay. I have so many ideas. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
Confidence is my thing.
I
Like
love
with
it.
anybody who has like a leadership practice, they
Hmm.
usually have some area where they have heavy focus. And confidence is mine. I lean very heavily and like connect confidence to all of the things. So,
Hmm.
a couple in the realm of confidence, I want you to just be aware of the things that are vibe confidence. Number one, especially as men, our prefrontal cortex, right? Just put your hand on your forehead. That's where your prefrontal cortex is. Ours is way bigger than man's. And what does this mean? You're like, prefrontal cortex, girl, the neuroscience, I don't like that. Okay, but here's the thing. Here's what that means for us. Because our prefrontal cortex is so big, as lady leaders, this gives us a propensity to mull, to ruminate, and turn things over and over and over again. Let me tell you something. I still be thinking about things I said 10 years ago. Like, why did you say that? Why are you like this? Why are
Wow.
you why? That is our prefrontal cortex. What that ends up doing is, let's say that, you know, you email Angela and she's taking a long time to respond and you want to be on her podcast and she's like, giving you the Heisman and you are telling yourself because of this prefrontal cortex, she doesn't like me. She doesn't think I'm good enough to be on her podcast. I feel like she's ignoring me. She saw my request and she is deliberately ignoring. That is prefrontal cortex. Now, what you can do as we continue to build our confidence, because part of why our confidence starts to shake is because of the stories that we tell ourselves. So, to combat that, we have to tell ourselves a new story. I know why Angela's not responding. She went to the Jurassic Park Museum and then all the dinosaurs came to life and they ate her. And so we're waiting for the dinosaur to digest and like bring her back out so that she gets to her emails. I know what you're thinking, like Jurassic Park Museum, her, this is ridiculous. But here's what I'm telling you from a neurological standpoint. Your brain is okay with it and will go with you on the journey, regardless of how ridiculous the journey sounds. And what ends up happening is we're shutting down that need and, just the natural desire to mull and ruminate and tell
Mm-hmm.
ourselves is more than likely inaccurate. It's
Mm-hmm.
just as inaccurate as the dinosaur story, but the dinosaur story sets us free so that we can
Mm-hmm.
move on and go do what we need to do. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we can do, because we're often experiencing a downward spiral when it comes to our confidence because of lack of experience. And so when we're doing something new and we keep hitting our head, stubbing our toe, scraping our knee in the newness of it all, we again start mull and ruminate and we
Mm-hmm.
tell ourselves false. This is why I can't do this. They're gonna find me out and they're gonna fire me. They're gonna find out why they should have never hired me. I should probably go tell them before they tell me. I've literally seen women quit before they fire me. Girl, stop doing that. If you are finding that your confidence is wavering due to lack of experience, where can you bolster your experience? Can you sit on a board? Can you join an employee resource group or business resource group? Can you volunteer? All the lady leaders up in here got businesses.
Yeah.
Can you volunteer to practice some skills in their business at the intern rate or even for free so that you can get the experience you need without feeling like you're experimenting with your team on your job? What
Mm-hmm.
can you do to bolster the experience, which would then bolster your confidence?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we do, we get our confidence starts to waver because of lack of skill. And
Mm-hmm.
so we should know how to use L really well, but we don't. We should know how to use Zoom really well, but we don't. We should know how to manage a calendar really well, but we don't. What can you do to close the skills gap so that you have the confidence that you need to show up and execute with brilliance? And or is there a way based on whatever the gap is that you can lean into where you have a strength? What do I mean? I'm an amazing starter, y'all. I'm the visionary. I got all the ideas. I got like, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. Now, I thought something was wrong with me. You all don't know how many times I've been like, God, fix it. Fix it, Jesus. What is the problem? Why am I like this? I can start anything and
Mm-hmm.
finish 5% of it, maybe 20 if you want, right? And
Uh-huh.
30% if you're paying me. But
Uh-huh.
the thing is, I'm a horrible finisher. Horrible. And I spent a lot of time trying to become an expert finisher. And what was I doing? I was exhausting myself. I
Mm.
wasn't operating gifts, and I was literally trying to be someone else. It's great to be a great starter because a lot of people are horrible starters. But that means if they're a horrible starter, they're a great finisher. Aha,
Mm,
you be
mm,
on my team because I need you to close the gaps and put a bow on stuff because I will start it. You go ahead. I'm going to pass the baton to you and you finish. So, how can you lean into more of who you are versus trying to become someone else? Because it's that journey of insisting that you need to be different that causes our confidence to completely tank because
mm,
all you can do is you. That's it. That's all you can do. And so, what are some things that you can do to give yourself permission to unhook? Because sometimes we tell ourselves crazy stories and we tune into You Suck Radio and this is why you're a failure.com. And then we live there. We spend all our quality time, reading the comments. Here's why Dorothy sucks. Here's why you shouldn't hire her. Here's why she stank. Like all this stuff. And it's like, no one said that. That
mhm,
is all in your head. But if
mhm.
you do not give yourself permission to turn off failure radio and get off of here's why you suck.com, get off of Beyonce's internet. Like, stop, get off of it and give yourself permission to tell yourself a new story. You
Mhm.
have to. Otherwise, again, back prefrontal cortex, we are going to drive ourselves bonkers with wrong information. And so the next time you're telling yourself a crazy story about
Mhm.
why Angela did not respond to you, I want you to sing it to the tune of Happy Birthday. Angela doesn't like me. Angela doesn't like me. You know what I mean? And then, of course,
Right.
you're going to start laughing because it
Mhm.
sounds ridiculous. But what I want
Mhm.
you to do is take it out of your mind and say it
Mhm.
out loud so that you can hear that is not what's really happening.
Mhm.
Angela's probably away from her desk and her assistant is on vacation, right? Like, let's give ourselves permission to unhook from the false stories that we tell ourselves. Because if no one is telling you directly, my friend, it didn't happen. It
Right.
didn't happen. You can hear from a friend, from a friend, from a
Mm.
friend, and it still didn't happen because it didn't come to you directly. Okay. So I
Mhm.
want y'all to give yourselves permission to unhook so that you are creating room and space for you to literally maximize who you are and
Mhm.
giving yourself permission to be exactly who you are because this is a good thing. If we were
Mhm.
all cookie cutter and the same, it would be really boring.
Right. No, I mean, so what everything you just said is so important and is the key to moving forward in your life. And what I really love about what you said is one, when you start realizing the science behind why we think we do, you let yourself off the hook because we beat
Yes,
ourselves up about it. So I
for
really
sure.
love that. And it's one thing I tell my clients, it's really important. One of the first things you need to understand is that we're biological and what's happening is just, and then you gave us tips on how we can control it because that's so empowering. And I mean, it's really just one of the fundamental steps. So, yes. It's so important. I mean, it's just like, I don't know what else I can say. I have this conversation over and over, and we can't talk about it enough because so many people are just sleepwalking
Oh my
and
God, yeah.
life is happening to them.
Right, right,
And
right.
really, we need to take that, agency in our lives and stop waiting for somebody to see, oh, they're going to see, what I bring to the table. No, that's not their job. Nobody's coming
No,
to
it's not.
rescue you.
Nope. You are
It's
the one that you've been waiting for.
right. And what I really love what you had to say about assessing your skills. Ask a friend, ask family, think about what do people come to you and ask you about all consistently. And
Yeah.
and the thing is I've had some things over the years that people consistently come to me and I would just dismiss it because it seems so easy and just natural to me and intuitive,
Yeah.
but we
That is,
really need to take account of what
yeah.
we do well and what we don't do well. And if it's something that we can learn, humble yourself to learn it, because some people think that ladders come with the low step and the high step. We have to
True.
get there. We,
Oh,
it's like there's two extremes. Somebody, stays on the low step forever, or they just want to go from the low step to the high step, because the second you try to help them learn what it is they need to know, they're just immediately upset because they need that outside validation. And it's like
exactly.
nobody has time for that. Right.
No, you got to keep going. You have to be consistent
Right.
and you have to know that you're operating in your personal purpose,
Yeah.
your personal vision, your personal values.
Yeah.
And so when you know that you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
that gives you a higher sense of assurance, but it
Mm-hmm.
also feeds and fuels your confidence. But the
Yeah.
thing is, I don't want anyone to kind of walk away and be like, well, so then I can never have a bad day.
Oh,
Girl, of course you can definitely have
yeah.
bad days. And every
Right.
time you are shifting, every time you're elevating, and every time you're in
It's
a
hard.
new space, your confidence is going to absolutely take a hit. It is.
Right.
So this idea of like you can have unshakable confidence, that's a lie.
Right.
Confidence is like a roller coaster. It goes up
Right.
and down. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to have the skills to rebuild your confidence and to be able to have times where you can maintain your confidence
Right.
and be equipped when it does take a hit or it does take a blow so that you can recognize what's going on and start
Mm-hmm.
implementing tools in your toolbox
Yeah.
so that you can recuperate and not
Right.
live there forever.
Right. And honestly, the goal is to get to the point where you're quote unquote friends with failure. So you're consistently putting yourself in positions where you're willing to make mistakes and you're willing to fail and you don't take it personally. And the faster you fail, the faster you get to a level of competence. And well, you're going to look back and there you're the expert. Because what I try to stress is that when you start a business or you start anything new, learn a new skill, it the difficulty, it's seeming so hard, is temporary. It seems like it's never going to end. It's like when our
Right.
children are
Okay.
little, we think it's never going to end.
I'm there
But
right now. Like, girl, grow up.
right, I know, but it does eventually. But I don't
Oh,
know if you would have anything to add about one of the things you talk about is the importance of soft skills. Where does that come into play?
oh, I think soft skills are huge. And, I sometimes end up on, college campuses talking to students,
Mm-hmm.
like that. And one of the things is that when it comes to the soft skills, and this is not just for people who are like fresh out of college, this
Mm-hmm.
is for folks who've been working a while too. That's the
Oh, yeah.
biggest gap that organizations see. And
Mm.
that also fuels into lack of promotability. So a lot of times
Mm.
we can run circles around people with our technical prowess, but what
Mm-hmm.
we don't have is the adaptability, the
Mm-hmm.
follow up, the ability to build rapport and relationship, the
Mm-hmm.
ability to engage in relationship repair, the ability to communicate, say what you're going to do what you're going to say, communicate when you can't, and then the ability to
Yeah.
navigate conflict and engage in solid conflict management. Those are just a few. And then, of course, accountability, right? So, in
Right.
these soft skills areas, because we often, when we go to college or trade school or get
Mm-hmm.
certification, they're not focused on the soft skills of how do you translate your intellect, your intelligence, and your smarts into relationships because
Right.
companies are not run by robots, they're
Right.
run by people.
Right.
And so often what we see is a gap in people skills. And
Mm-hmm.
so the people who have the strategic approach to manage the people and the relationships, they get promoted. But the person who doesn't have that, but they've got the technical piece, they're looking at this other individual, male or female, or non identifying, and saying, you know what? I could run circles around them. You
Mm-hmm.
could technically, but on the soft skill side, they got you beat by a million. And so I think in that space, if we can take the time to bolster those skills,
Mm-hmm.
that is game changer. But what I will lift up is that as lady leaders, we have something built in called tend and befriend. This
Mm-hmm.
is, we have no control over it, none. And you're like, tend and befriend, what does that mean? So this could mean that you are getting, let's say you're getting in a fight with someone. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
you're fighting with, and now your partner's upset.
Mm-hmm.
And you, I'm upset too.
Mm-hmm.
But do this thing. So you may not follow through, but it is naturally occurring. It's this thing that we do where even though we are hot and ready to just hotter than fish grease and want to pour grits on everybody, we want to make sure the other person is okay. Like, well,
Mm-hmm.
are you okay though? Like I don't like you, but like, are you okay? We do naturally, even if we don't want to do it, we want to be mad. But it's the tend and
Mm-hmm.
befriend, it's in our DNA. And what this
Mm-hmm.
means for us when we go to work, because we aren't going to be fighting at work like we would with a partner, but
Mm-hmm.
what this means is our ability to relate, our
Mm-hmm.
ability to connect, and our ability to cultivate relationship is hardwired because we've
Mm-hmm.
got this tendency in our system. Like, I don't want to care about if you're mad, I'm mad.
Right.
But we can use that to our advantage to build an army of people who are familiar with our work, our personal brand,
Mm-hmm.
in this organization and can carry our good name forward
Mm-hmm.
because we're hardwired to build and cultivate and repair relationships. So for the person who's like, CTC, cut the check, I didn't come
Mm-hmm.
here to work, I'm going to put in my 8 and get out the gate. The one thing that you have on your side that men don't have, because men don't have the tendon friend, they don't have
Mm-hmm.
that. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
but we do, and we can use that to our advantage in the workplace as we continue to bolster the rest of the soft skill set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, as you were talking about the soft skills, I'm like, wait a minute, these are all things where we are predisposed to be strong at and where we can further develop those skills to really shine and set ourselves apart as women, as leaders, as
Really?
business owners, and really, look at that as a way that you want to set yourself apart, develop those skills which are so important with your clients, with the employees you're going to bring on, with
Yeah. And we have to do it with our kids all the time. We
exactly.
have to hold these like accountable with natural consequences,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you
Mm-hmm.
stop throwing the ball, we're gonna have to try again later. A natural
Right.
consequence,
Right.
right?
And that's another
That's
thing.
accountability.
Right.
We have to, follow up. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I told you to clean the room. Did you clean the room? Right? We
Yep.
have to communicate, and we have to communicate in a way that allows, whoever we're talking to understand, and that they understand the impact of if they do or if they don't. Like,
Mm-hmm.
these skills are transferable. Like, even if you
Yes.
got little bitty kids,
Oh yeah.
preteens.
You were talking about the importance of the soft skills and how we can differentiate ourselves and stand apart.
Absolutely.
And so, how, that gets on the topic of the importance of personal development. And I don't think we take ownership of that or think it's for somebody who is in the C suite. And one of the
Right.
messages that I love that you have is that there's leadership potential at every level.
Absolutely. You are required to lead from every single seat you sit in. We could fight, we could go in the parking lot. I mean, it is a universal truth. It is
Mm-hmm.
a non-negotiable. And as women, we sit in so many leadership roles. As moms, you are the leader. The
Right.
little ones that you created, the army that you created, they are the followers. And so we take
Mm-hmm.
on so many roles: mother, sister, daughter, friend, board member, employee, leader, manager, whatever the case may be. And
Mm-hmm.
so in all of these roles, we are required to lead. Leading doesn't necessarily mean that you have people reporting to you, because leadership is influence. And so it first begins with your ability to influence yourself. Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to listen to me? Am I going to do what I said? Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to have to put myself on punishment or in a timeout? Like, do I listen to me? Because if
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to me ever, why would I
Mm-hmm.
expect other people? I don't even listen to
Right.
me. And so, when we start to take on this, you know, persona or thought process that I'm a leader everywhere I go, and my leadership is portable, and I take it with me and I'm gifting it wherever I'm at. If you
Mm-hmm.
sit on this board, you're gifting your leadership to that board. If
Mm-hmm.
you're an employee at XYZ firm, you're gifting your leadership to that firm. If you volunteered an event over the weekend, you're gifting your leadership to them. But you
Mm-hmm.
take your leadership everywhere you go. And so, what kind of leader do you want to be? Do you want to be a leader that inspires people to learn more, to do more, to become more? Is that the type of leader that you want to be? Or do you want to
Mm-hmm.
be the type of leader that everyone's just scared of, and then they talk about you at the dinner table later?
Right.
So don't
And
talk about
oh, yeah. And that's what I would love to hear your thoughts on what leadership is to you. And I think we as women, we get it really wrong when we just try to lead as men. So
that.
we,
Yeah, let's not.
so I would love to hear your thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I like John Mack's definition that leadership is influence. And
Mhm.
for me, as lady leaders, that's why I call us that. So we don't forget we're the lady
Yeah.
first. Like,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
lady leaders, I don't think that we have to show up and be one of the boys. I do
Hmm.
feel like we feel compelled to do that because we
Yes.
feel like, well, that's the way that we'll get ahead. But what I will say, and based on the research, is that we have first and second generation bias that we're competing with. And then also, it's the likability factor. If you're acting like a
Mm.
dude, it's harder for people to like women who act like men.
Mm.
Um, that's why some people who come across more masculine, it's harder for them to get to those higher levels
Mm.
because people are confused
Mm.
about, well, what is your authentic self? Who are you
Mm.
really? They're trying
Hmm.
to connect and they can't because they feel and perceive that you're
Hmm.
sending mixed messages. And so I do think that when we make up our minds, like, well, yes, I'm a girl, I'm a lady leader, I'm not a male leader,
Hmm.
then I think we can get more into who we are and how we want to be showing up. Because I think what that looks like is understanding that we can be competent, confident, and have capacity without it having to look like, a really squared off power suit and no makeup and, some tennis shoes, unless that's your look. But to
Hmm.
feel like, well, I have to always wear pants, or I
Mm.
have to always look a certain way, or I cannot get a new hairstyle, or I cannot wear makeup, or I have to speak 7 octaves lower than where my voice actually sits.
Hmm.
All of these send messages that can confuse your audience, which is other leaders in the company who are trying to see, are you a good are you a good ad for this next level? So you're at the managerial level. Would you
Hmm.
be a good ad at the director level? Would you be a good ad at the VP level? But if people are confused because it doesn't seem like you're being your authentic self, then it's harder for you to move up because they're not sure about who you are and who you're going to become as you ascend. And so I do think that there's benefit into being like the feminine CEO or that feminine leader. You are a girl. And so you are a woman if that's how you identify, and then being able to lean into that and not feel like it's not okay for me to be myself because being myself will hold me back, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yourself is going to give you information that you need to decide where you want to be
Hmm.
more so than it's going to hold you back. Now, I say that knowing that someone's going to be like, yeah, well, I just like to be this way and you better deal with it. I am not talking about all that.
Yeah.
No, no, ma'am. I'm just talking about if you're someone who likes to lift up fresh ideas because
Hmm.
you're somebody who welcomes change, you don't have to sit here and act like you don't like to lift up fresh ideas so that other people could probably go on the ride of welcoming change because you're adaptable. I'm
Hmm.
talking about the person who's extroverted, but they're pretending to be introverted. I'm talking about the person who has a desire to be a peacekeeper, but they're trying to be really assertive because they think that that's what everybody wants.
Right.
I'm talking about the silent leader who feels like they need to show up like Dorothy because they're like, well, I'll get more respect if I act like her. No, no, you'll get more respect if you act you. You can still be introverted and still be a remarkably powerful leader if you
Hmm.
lean into how you are naturally.
Hmm.
Because what I see with introverted leaders is they may not talk as much as everybody else, but when they do talk, you better believe everybody's listening because they have something to say. And they are just more strategic with how they lead. And they do a lot of their efforting in smaller groups. They may not say anything at the 20-person meeting, but they will go around and get people in twos and threes and on
Hmm.
email or on the IM tool that's being used to be like, hey, I wanted to lift this up for your consideration. And they are using their skill to help them move their ideas forward without having to be the loudest person in the room.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm more like that last person, and I didn't see the value in that. And like who would want to follow
Oh,
me?
girl, bye.
Right?
Plenty
I
value,
know.
so much value. And it's
Right.
funny because I'm finding that I'm working with a lot more leaders who are quiet
Hmm.
and they're wondering if it's going to hold them back. And I'm like, no, let
Yep.
me show you how to use it. Because sometimes you're in a room with a lot of loud people, but I tell you
Hmm.
what, those loud people aren't always saying something.
Right.
And as the quiet leader, you often have the power of synthesis on your side.
Hmm.
Everyone is so loud and talking so much that they didn't hear anything that anybody said. And here you come. I have an idea for everyone's consideration. What I'm hearing from the group is X. And so it sounds like what the way forward might be Y. What do you
Hmm.
all think? Not a whole lot of words, not loud, but you have the ability to synthesize,
Hmm.
compile, and then push a way forward that really helps you move your agenda forward in a
Hmm.
meaningful and powerful way. And of course, everyone who's loud in the room heard what you said, and now they can find their marching orders that to move this project in the right direction. So you don't have to be loud. And we need all the peeps. We need the folks who are introverted and the folks who are extroverted.
Yeah.
We need the peacekeepers and we need those who are going to be, forceful and driving. And we
Hmm.
need the folks who are going to welcome change. And we need the folks who are just going to be, digging their heels in. We need
Right.
all of it because
Right.
this is what allows us to have comprehensive teams
Hmm.
that can look at all the different elements required to have a successful project or successful goals and strategic plans and things like that.
Hmm. Well, Dorothy, I could talk to you for hours. I mean, we've learned
I
so
love
much from you.
it.
You have so much important things to say. You have just, and one of the things I just love and is just so important is how you just show up and you own it. You're not asking anybody's permission. You're not calling your girlfriends. What do you think if I go on this podcast and say this? No, you know it. You know it's true.
Right.
I mean, and just emulating that and giving that as an example to the world for anyone listening is so important because we all have individual skills that we need to show up with that level of confidence and authority and just own it.
Yeah.
So I hope that this,
Yes, that's the word of the day. Own it.
yeah, and I hope that this podcast episode has given people permission to just go forward and, believe in themselves and just, that voice is just going to keep getting louder. So, how can listeners connect with you and, if they want to learn more about what you do and just want to be in your vibe?
Sure. Yes, listen to the vibe, y'all. So
Yeah.
first and foremost, definitely get my new book. It's on Barnes and Noble, it's on Amazon, it's on my
Excellent.
It's called Be Accountable and Be Fabulous.
Okay.
And you can go to beaccountable.befabulous.com and you can order the book there. You can take the accountability quiz and find out how accountable you are. Plus, I will
Love it.
send you a free checklist so you can become more and more accountable each week.
Wonderful.
Um, and you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm Dorothy Enriquez on LinkedIn, and we can hang out there and have fun. Otherwise, I am at the Ellevate Collective on Instagram. So we can hang out there too. That could be fun. And then you can just visit the website,
Yeah.
www.theelevatecollective.com, so that if you are looking for a speaker or workshops or cohort style experiences, you can visit the website and get a look and feel to see if that would be a great culture match for your organization. And if you are the business owner, is it a good culture match for the firm, agency, or organization that you are building from the bottom up? So I hope we can definitely stay in touch, but I want you to know you got this.
Yeah.
And you have everything you need in order to march forward with excellence and brilliance. So you make your personal growth and development a top priority,
Hmm.
because the people who make personal growth and development a top priority fare far better than everybody else.
Right.
And it's a game changer when it comes to this space of confidence. And so
Yeah.
make your growth and development a priority this year. And I hope I can join you on the journey.
Yep. I love that, Dorothy. I'm so glad we connected and had this conversation. It's been fabulous. You are fabulous.
Yes, I got cute for you, child. I combed my hair and
I
everything. I
know.
even got my little Ellevate pin. I did my makeup. I mean, I am here.
I love it. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again to Dorothy Enriquez for connecting with me for this podcast episode. Isn't she amazing? I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. I will leave all of Dorothy's contact information, links to the Ellevate Collective and her book, all in the show notes. So look for that information there. If you would like to connect with me, you can reach out to mombusinesscoach.com and you can see where you can reach out to me, my social links, all of that good stuff there. You can find it at mombusinesscoach.com. Thank you again for joining me on this episode. I can't wait to bring you another episode on Friday. I have these new little short episodes once a week that's just me sharing some of my business tips and information. And I will have one of those on Friday, and then next Monday, an interview with another amazing mompreneur. So I can't wait to bring you that. And again, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a review, share, and be sure to subscribe. So thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing week. Talk to you next time.